Raywat Deonandan is an epidemiologist at the University of Ottawa, and he joins us again on 680 CJOB. Professor, thank you so very much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
As you look at what's unfolding here in various jurisdictions, caution appears to be prevailing, yet from where I stand here in Manitoba, looking at Quebec and wondering aloud, why would you let elementary school children back in? What's the rationale for that?
There's a number of ways of thinking about it. One is if you're going to open any businesses, you need to provide childcare for those individuals, those children left behind. So opening up elementary schools gives a place for the kids to go. There is a school of thought that holds that children are much less likely to become infected and also much less likely to be carriers themselves. It's controversial. I'm not going to say one way or the other whether that's the right view, because the science is still out on this. I will say that we don't really understand the epidemiology of transmission of this disease when it comes to children. So this might be premature.
Okay, so what is the data, or have you seen any data where people are contracting COVID-19? Because I saw an article, and again, I always take these things with a grain of salt, saying most people are getting it when they're at home, which means, as one of our guests earlier today said, COVID-19 doesn't walk, it has to be brought to you. So if people are getting it at home, I'm thinking kids are going to school, they could become a carrier, they may not get that ill, but if they bring it home, they're going to bring it home to moms and dads. Are there any statistics on where people are getting COVID-19?
Well, that's a really good question, and there aren't very good statistics. We do know that in Canada, much, or the majority, the plurality, it's a technical word, of the transmission is in the community. So it's not from travelers or close contacts of travelers. It's not from residential homes. Those are self-contained. It's from things popping up in the community. So yeah, it's going to a place, getting it there, and bringing it back home. It's from people not taking the appropriate hygienic caution when they're going about their business. The larger question is, will children bring it back home? It's possible. So again, the assumption being made, and some other countries are making the same assumption, like Sweden most famously, that children are less likely to be carriers. I don't know if that's true. No one knows for sure if that's true. So there is definitely some risk in this.
Let's pick up on that and talk about data, if you will. There was and I've read about this, and 60 Minutes did a fabulous piece on this around Toronto-based Blue Dot technology that managed to talk the airline industry into sharing their data with Blue Dot as far as where flights go to and from. And they've also been able to get cell phone carriers on board. And last December 31st, they were able to issue to their clients a warning about coronavirus. So with that technology existing now, it seems to me that you have some clients in Canada, wasn't used in the United States. It's being used in California and elsewhere. But I'm wondering whether or not we are using the technology available to us to help predict where this is all going.
That's a great question. And first of all, about Blue Dot, I think they're a fine company and their product looks very interesting. What they've essentially done is created a technological platform for disease surveillance. That's the term we use for keeping track of diseases around the world and detecting outbreaks. And they're tracking things like livestock diseases, as you mentioned, global flight ticket sales, population demographics, even real-time climate changes. And they're processing that through their artificial intelligence to see if they can detect a signal that may indicate that an outbreak is happening. That's fantastic. That's what needs to be done. We need to deploy our advanced computer toys into this fight and not use simply medieval techniques like hiding in your house, which is what we've been doing for the last few weeks. There are other tools we can deploy as well. So I was talking to a Harvard team recently that wanted to look at smart cities. So when we've got our smart devices like the street light or the sidewalk, they're talking to each other using new 5G technology. How can that be used to help control all of this? What I told them is, what I, as an epidemiologist, want to know to control this epidemic is I want to know who has the disease, I want to know where they are and where they've been, and what technologies allow that to happen. So what we're talking here essentially is about this thing called TTI, testing, tracing, and isolation. That's the buzzword for how we get out of this. A lot of testing, a lot of tracing, and isolation. And are there technologies that can help us with this? Yes, there are. So back in February, the WHO had to hire 2,000 teams of epidemiologists, but with 5 people per team, to trace tens of thousands of contacts in China. We can't afford to do that in Canada. We haven't got 2,000 teams of epidemiologists, so we need technology. And there's a host of apps coming down the pipeline that help us do this. And of course, as you're aware, the challenge is the privacy concerns that these apps pose, data sharing, how much intrusion into our personal lives they will require. So that's the challenge that's being unfurled right now in the tech offices around the world. But there is a flotilla of tools that are currently being trialed around the world. Australia has a fantastic one called COVID Safe. This is an app that tracks every person who's in contact with someone. So if you've got the app and you pass by somebody else who has the app, then it detects that. And if you're diagnosed later on with the disease, it can go back and figure out who you were exposed to, and the contact tracing is done automatically. That's the kind of technology that we're going to be seeing deployed in this fight.
So it exists, but are we actually using it? Is the government of Canada using it? Is Manitoba using it? Is there a province using it?
The answer is yes and no. So there is a tool called Canada COVID-19 that was produced with Thrive Health out of BC with partnership with the federal government. And there you enter your symptoms. And if you're ever diagnosed with something, you can then press a button and that's shared with public health. That's the lowest level of technology that we can deploy. Other provinces are working on other things. In Quebec, the Myler Research Center has an app they're working on that uses GPS data, and that records the people you might have come into contact with as you do things like go to the store. And so if you're ever diagnosed in the future, we can go back and trace. The challenge, there's so many challenges. One of them is, do you use Bluetooth or GPS? If you use GPS, the privacy people get very upset. So most of the new apps are using Bluetooth. And I will say, a lot of European countries have developed their own apps, but Apple and Google are partnering to build their own app, and now that may take over everything because they're the giants in the field, and they'll do a good job. And theirs is going to use Bluetooth, and so the data won't be centralized. It'll be stored on your phone until you want to share it, if there's an emergency of some kind. So look out for the Apple and Google products to come out, and they will be the world leaders, in my opinion, very soon.
He is a professor at the University of Ottawa, an epidemiologist, a writer. I think you have a podcast as well, Raywat Deonandan, joining us. So what's caught your attention? What are you writing about? What are you studying right now when it comes to COVID-19?
Well, most of my time is taken up responding to public inquiries, which I think is an important role. So right now I'm thinking about those couple of doctors in Bakersfield, California. I don't know if you're aware of them.
Yes.
They've got a viral video. Yeah, so I'm writing a response to that. They've done a lot of bad science in the video, a lot of very bad science. And it's unfortunate that they've got some viral traction, because they sell a good story, a positive story, that we're through this. We're not through this. We're in the beginning of this still. And it's important for people to get sober, rational, scientific analysis to understand why that happens. So my role, again, I feel is public communication. And that's becoming increasingly important every day, as I'm sure you're aware.
So where can people read more about your work, listen to your podcast, that type of thing, Raywat?
Thank you for plugging me. I appreciate that. You can go to my website, mylastname.com, DEONANDAN.com.
Raywat.
Podcast?
Go ahead, Raywat.
Oh, my podcast is on the same site, so you can go check it out.
One-stop shop for all of your epidemiology needs.
Yes.
Raywat Deonandan joining us live on 680 CJOB. Thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you.